Thank you for joining us today for our Women in Analytics event. This is sponsored by CNA Corporation. I am your host, Dee Brown, and we'll get started here very shortly. So yet again, thank you for joining us today. I'm Dee Brown. I am the Talent Acquisition Lead with CNA Corporation. And we're going to tell you a little bit more about CNA. We have Kim Bianchi and Carson Parent here, research analyst for our data science division. And we're going to learn more about CNA and ahead of the Data Connect conference on July 20th and 21st. So as I mentioned, we're going to go over CNA. So CNA is a nonprofit as well as a government contractor based in Arlington, Virginia. We're split up into three different divisions. We have our corporate division, Institute for Public Research, or IPR, and then our federally funded Research and Development Center, or FFRDC. We've been around for 80 years, just last year, and we have about 600 to 700 employees, and majority of them are based in research and analysis. And what's interesting also about our population here is that majority of our researchers have PhDs, about 72%. And you see our beautiful building here on the right in Arlington. Now with CNA, granted we are based in Arlington, but we also do field work all over the world. As you can see on the map, we have places in Naples, in Honolulu, in Okinawa. These are field researchers. So we do at times send out our researchers to these different locations. I mentioned the FFRDC. These are just a few of the programs, systems, tactics, and force, China and Indo-Pacific. As I mentioned, the data science division, which is not listed here, but operational warfighting and just a few others. Here we have the Institute of Public Research, a Department of Homeland Security, and they focus on things like public health, safety, homeland security, emergency management, justice and law enforcement, even some aerospace and security. And then we have corporate roles, which include our human resources, accounting and finance, IT, security, our event planning team who put this together. Thank you very much. And those are the general ones that are based in our actual location. Now, as I mentioned, the majority of our employees are within research and analysis, and they come from all types of different backgrounds, physical sciences, biology, business and economics, and focus on all different areas. Now, without further ado, as I mentioned, we have research analyst Carson Parent and research analyst Kim Bianchi, who will speak a little bit more about CNA. Carson came to us back in 2020. She comes with us with a master's, and previously, I believe you had a bachelor's in chemical engineering, right? And so, yeah, very cool, from Wake Forest University. And she works on our data science division. And so we also have Kim Bianchi, who comes with us with her master's as well. She came to us about 3 years ago and is a research analyst as well at the data science division. I'm so used to saying DSD. And she works on various analytics on sometimes, I believe, overlapping with Carson, but I'll let them get into that a little bit more. Thank you, too, for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, of course.
So, you know, I know y'all are research analysts here at CNA, but tell us a little bit more. Tell our audience a little bit more about how did you get here? What's your background? Kim, I'm going to actually start with you.
All right. Yeah. So like Dee said, I'm Kim Bianchi. I'm a research analyst for the data science division. I got my bachelor's in mathematics from Monmouth University, but it wasn't until like my junior or senior year that I wanted to study statistics. I ended up enrolling in this careers in mathematics course where they tell you about all these different jobs you can do in the math field, because generally when you're in mathematics, people assume you're going to teach or they assume you're going to be a professor, and no one really tells you the jobs you can actually hold with math. So there was this one panelist and they were talking about their career in sports analytics. And I thought it was so cool. Like, I really like sports and I really like statistics. So why not combine the two? So I ended up talking to them and started started enrolling in more statistics courses and ended up switching my major from not only mathematics, but to also statistics. And my senior year, I got an internship with the United States Golf Association, which was pretty cool. I got to work in their test center and work with a bunch of different people who were like testing golf balls and testing different turf measuring devices they were creating. So that was quite the experience. And then after my undergrad, I went on to get my master's degree in applied statistics. And during my time in grad school, I did a lot of projects that were like sports related because obviously this is the course I wanted to do. And it wasn't until like a month or two before graduation where I realized, hey, like sports analytics is really cool, but I don't know if I want to just refine myself to this one specific area. I kind of wanted to broaden my career search. So I ended up like looking around elsewhere, seeing what other opportunities were out there. And I was talking to my uncle who works for an organization with CNA. And he told me about CNA and was like, I know this group of people, they're really smart. They do a lot of analytic work that you do. So you should try applying. So I applied, talked to our VP and everything, and here I am today. So it's kind of my journey.
Okay. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. And what about you, Carson? Tell us about your path.
Yeah, so I definitely had a more non-traditional approach to getting into the field of data science compared to Kim. Kim coming from statistics and mathematics, it's much more of like a traditional trajectory to get into the space. Like Dee said, I got my bachelor's in chemical engineering. I was like most 18-year-olds. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I just wanted to go to school and study something. I was really good at math and science. And so I figured, well, most people do engineering, so I'll do that. A few years into my program, I realized, I'm not really sure if this is what I want for my life. I don't know if I want to be working on an oil rig or in a paper pulp plant or something like that. I think I want something with more creativity. I want more freedom of, letting my mind wander and trying to solve complex problems for a lot of different industries and many different stakeholders. I think that's really a unique thing that data scientists get to do. You get to apply your skill set in a wide variety of industries. So then I enrolled in a master's program over at Wake Forest University, got some really great skills there. And then I was looking for my next step in my career and where I wanted to go after I finished all of my education. I applied in a number of fields, in healthcare and finance and big tech, and doing those interviews and speaking to those people, I wasn't really excited about what my job would hold. So then when I found the job application for CNA and I applied, I had a really great several rounds of conversations with folks here. I met some really intelligent people and they really communicated well how much my work would be valued, how much I would grow, how many opportunities I would have here. And I just couldn't pass up an opportunity of that magnitude at such a young age with such little experience. And so, that's kind of how I ended up here, but I've never regretted my decision to come here. So it's been really a great one.
So that's really cool to hear about, like, just kind of the different paths you can get to being in the area that you're in right now, right? You came from chemical engineering, which is not exactly what we do as an organization. And then Kim, you came from sports analytics. Yes, it's analytics, but it's a totally different industry altogether. So, it's always interesting, and I always like to hear that from people so that our audience will also know there's just different paths to get to where you are, right? You don't have to start in one linear spot and then thinking that's where you have to stay, right? And there's places that you can expand. So I know you're both research analysts. But what do you do at CNA? Because there's so many things to do at CNA. I want to hear it from you. What is it that you do on a day-to-day basis, Kim?
Yeah, so I would describe in one word what I do is data. Whether I'm getting data, emailing other people data, processing data, it's just a lot of like technical work with cleaning data and everything. I would say that takes up like 60% of my day, and then sometimes I'll do more like modeling work, or like preparing slides so we can brief the work what we did to other people. But yeah, I think that would summarize a lot of what I do, or just like programming, coding in general.
And what about you, Carson?
Yeah, I think so. I do a lot of data stuff too. I'm transitioning into a role now that I'm doing more engagement. I'm doing more managing of here's all the work everybody has to do. Let's divvy it up and assign it, who does what and how can we reach our deadline and reach our milestones at the right cadence and with the right products. So I do a lot of engagement with our sponsors, and sponsor is just like a fancy word that we use at CNA to talk about the people that we're doing our work for. So that could be a uniformed military person, so they're a captain or they're a commander or they're an admiral. They could be in the Navy, they can be in, another service. We work with all the services at some point. It can also be a civilian in the government. And so we work really closely with those folks too. And so we have to engage with them. We need to empathize, what's your challenge? What are you going through? How can we help you better attack that problem? How can we give you some tools that can make your life easier, that can make your job easier, that can make us more prepared, for any kind of fight? So that's kind of what I've started to focus on more lately. And then at the same time, still doing some data stuff here and there, which is the fun part of the job.
Okay, great. So you two are really hands-on with the data. I guess what people really want to know, what are you doing with that data? Can you tell us about any recent projects that you're working on?
Okay. Yeah, so one of the projects I'm working on, Carson actually works with me on too. We do a lot of work with ship maintenance, and I mean, it can be ships or submarines, but every ship has to go through these maintenance periods, just like your car has to go through maintenance periods. Like you have to go through and get your oil changed every 6 months and tires rotated. So they go through these large maintenance periods, and once they start their maintenance periods, a lot of times they realize there's a bunch of extra work that they didn't realize they had to do. So like kind of when you go to get your oil changed, and then once they get your car in, they're like, hey, now you need new brake pads, and now your axle is rusty, and all these other things start coming out, and you're like, I thought I was going to be here for 30 minutes, and you end up being there for 5 hours. Like, think of ship maintenance like that, just on a larger scale. And like some of these ships are being delayed like 100 days sometimes, and that's really impactful for their schedules. So Carson and I try and figure out what work could they have found beforehand, how can they be more efficient, what areas can they fix before going in so they don't have to do that work during the maintenance period. So that's a lot of the work we do for ship maintenance, and yeah, I don't know.
And what about you, Carson? Like, I know you're working on this project with Kim as well, but can you tell me a little bit more from your perspective of what you're doing on it?
Yeah, so with that project, like Kim said, we do a lot of explorative analysis to understand what's causing some of those delays, what's causing us to find work that maybe we should have found beforehand. Why did we not catch it ahead of time? And then there are other processes that happen at our shipyards that kind of contribute to the problem of maintenance delays. And so we try to unpack that and discover that. And then like most analytics that you'll see in industry, it's mainly predictive. Like that's what's really impactful and what a lot of people want to understand. They're like, tell me the future. If you can tell me what the future is going to be, that's super valuable to them because then they can do something about it. And so one of the main products that we provide the Navy is we tell them with this much probability, with like 80% probability, your maintenance period of that submarine is going to be 100 days late, like Kim said. And giving them that foresight of this is going to happen unless you do some change now, or unless you make some other mitigation, it allows them to be prepared, because otherwise, they just think everything's fine and dandy until it's not, right? And so it's not giving them any kind of foresight. And that's something that we've worked on with them for a long time. We continue to engage with them and provide those predictions, and then we refine them and make them more and more accurate as time goes on. So it's been a really rewarding project in that sense, that we see those impacts.
Yeah, I think that's very cool, right? Because, sometimes when I talk to analysts, especially if they come from like education realm, right? They'll say like, I do a lot of research, but they don't see the impact of that research, the end result and what it's doing, right? They're doing research for something. What I think is cool, and you brought this up, Carson, about like not only just like seeing the end result, but the questions you're trying to answer. You're not just like doing research to do research. You're thinking about what is actually needed for your sponsor, right? What is actually needed for the client here. And Kim, I think you did a great job with just explaining like a car maintenance. I think everybody can relate to that for the most part, about like, you got to do this every 6 months, every 3,000 miles. And so what you're doing with the Navy and so forth, it seems like a really cool project. You can go from beginning to end to kind of understand what you're doing and the future impact of that all. So that's very cool. Very cool. If you ever get to go to the ships, take a picture. I think that would be cool. So you've both been here for a couple of years now. What do you like about working at CNA?
You want to go first?
Yeah, I'll start. So, you kind of hit on it, a lot of it, like the impact of our work. And it's funny you mentioned the going and seeing a ship. Kim and I have both been to several shipyards, and we've walked on submarines, and we've walked on aircraft carriers and other ships. And that's such a cool part of our job that not a lot of people get to do stuff like that. And, we're a handful of civilians who ever get to set foot on a nuclear submarine. So that's like a really cool thing that we get to do. And then like you were saying about the impact, I know tons of colleagues of mine from grad school and, other data scientists out in industry, they're kind of siloed in a part of their organization or a part of their department where they have one task, one objective, and that's all that they get to work on. And sometimes that never sees the light of day. It never comes to fruition, all the work and all the effort that they put into that analysis, into that model, and it just kind of dies on the shelf, or it just kind of ends up not being utilized in the greater of the company. And I feel like that's really discouraging to a lot of data scientists. You want to make sure that what you're working on, that art that you made, I kind of see it as an art, goes somewhere and has some kind of impact and value to somebody. What we get to do every day is we're on the phone, or we're in meetings, we're going to the Pentagon, we're going to the shipyards, and we're showing people, hey, we did this with your data, and we gave you this insight, we gave you this value. And they're so appreciative. And that's something that is so unique to what we get to do. We're sitting right next to an admiral, and he goes, I can't imagine if I didn't have CNA helping me solve this problem. And we get to hear those things. And that's very cool that, we're in our 20s and we don't have a lot of experience, but we're very knowledgeable. We've become experts in this field, and our work is valued. And I just think that's unmatched in a lot of other industries. It's very rewarding. Yeah.
And what about you, Kim? Do you have anything else to add to that about what you like about CNA?
Yeah, I definitely think, just in general, the people that work here are really great. I know, especially when I first started, like, there's so much to learn, so much you don't know about just like the Navy and everything. So everyone is like so happy to answer all of your questions, and like it's never that you're a bother. They're like, no, like give me all the questions, like I'll tell you everything I know. So they're very like warm, welcoming, and like wanting to help you learn so you're not like left in the dark. But it's also just like, if you like, since we're more of a research-based company, like there's not always a clear answer to everything. So it's not like, oh, this is the answer, this is the only way you can do it. You can kind of experiment and see like, okay, well, I ran this regression this time, but maybe this ANOVA is better. And like, I don't know, like there's not like a specific way to do something. So you have kind of that freedom to figure it out and what you think would be the best way.
Okay. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. I got the warm and fuzzies from both of you when you talk about the work that you're doing at CNN and what you actually like about it. I think we're in a unique space because we're not only working with the government, but we're a nonprofit, right? So we're very mission-based and focused and driven on our safety and security of the nation and how we're going about doing that. But then because we're that nonprofit, we're not so streamlined of how we have to do things. Like what you were saying, Kim, like, you have to do this and then this and this. We have options to kind of work around it, right? And that's I think it's one of those things that y'all mentioned that nice working at, right? Like being in a company that works that way. Now, I know you two have both had experience with, hiring, being on like interviewing panels and things like that. Being that you are research analysts, which is, pretty advanced within our company. You're not entry level people, right? So what are some of the things that you would say that you are looking for in candidates that are interviewing for your team for the data science division?
Okay, I'll go first. I think we're definitely looking for people who have that like curiosity aspect to them. We don't want people to just look at a data set and be like, oh, like I see this decrease here and see that incline here, but that's just the data, that's the way it is. We definitely want people to ask why and look into, okay, well, this data decreased here because this other thing happened. Like we need to know that why, because down the road, some admiral or our sponsor is going to ask us that question too. They're going to be curious why that's happening as well. And also like, not only why did it happen, but is there a way we can fix it? So it's not just like reading the data and you have to understand what's actually going on behind the data. And also we want people who are willing to learn. Like we don't expect you to come here knowing everything. Like Carson's definitely learned a lot while she's been here. I've learned so much while I've been here. So like we want you to be able to learn and want to learn. And it's like there's been times where it's like, okay, we want to look into this new way of like modeling data. And it's like we have time that we can set aside and take courses or like take a class on LinkedIn and understand like a different way of doing stuff. So definitely that like learning aspect too is something we look for.
Okay. And what about you, Carson? What are some of the things that you look for?
Yeah, I would second all of what Kim said. I think those are such critical fundamental skills that people need to have as data scientists, regardless of where you go. You always need to be curious, you always need to be learning. And then I think something that is really required at CNA, to have a fruitful career here and to be really valuable here and an asset to our team is your communication skills. I think there's a lot of data scientists out there who put that on the back burner. They consider it a soft skill. I really don't like that term soft skill because that means it's less valuable. I think communication skills are the most important skills you can have. Anybody can make a model. Anybody can learn that skill. I think that's a very transferable skill set. I think the hardest thing to do is to convince somebody who doesn't understand that topic, doesn't understand the statistics, that what you've created for them is valuable and they should listen to you. That's something that we struggle with a lot. At CNA, we have to convince our sponsors who maybe have no idea what we've done, what we're doing for them, what value we're adding. And they're very, kind of apprehensive because most people, if you don't understand something, you're not going to buy into it. It's a lot of trust you're giving into that person. And so being able to communicate clearly, whether it's a 3-star admiral, whether it's a commander, whoever it is, I think that's such an important skill set and something that people really need to prioritize.
Well, those are very interesting aspects. I think throughout the company, when I hear these type of things, even when I speak with hiring managers, it's the same thing. They want somebody that has the curiosity, natural curiosity to ask the questions, think outside the box. If something's already working, how do you even improve upon something that works, right? You're not thinking like, hey, it has to stay the same. And then also what you're saying, the communication skills. I always tell people, no matter what role you're in, you have to be able to communicate. Not everybody's going to be as tech savvy and understand all the data that goes behind it, but they want to know what the results are, right? What is the next step, and how to communicate that is really important. So I agree with you both. And of course, always having the technical skills that goes with it, right? To actually do the job. So thank you so much for all of that today. I know we're going into questions. I saw a few questions come up. Being that we have people that are entry level all the way up to managerial level that are attending this webinar, I did see a question. Someone asked, what are courses that you took in college, whether it's undergrad or grad school, that were really helpful for you in your career?
Yeah.
I'll really kick you, Kim.
Okay. I think one that I took in grad school was more like coding best practices. So one, we learned programming languages, but then we also learned like the best way to use them. And in that aspect, I mean, like, rather than running like a long for loop 1,000 times, like there's this way you can make it run faster, like in one line. And a lot of times, like with some of the models we're running here, like doing a for loop like that could take 10 hours rather than like an hour with like this better way of coding. So definitely like understanding how to make your code more efficient is definitely something that I use like almost every day, I would say.
And what about you, Carson? What are some courses that you've taken?
I think, like I said in the last question about being a good communicator, I'm a big advocate of like taking a public speaking class, doing some kind of class like that where you're refining that skill set, you're working on that. I think a lot of really techie people, very, math and science oriented, again, they deprioritize those skill sets. And so they either elect to not take those kind of classes, or, they try to get out of those things because it's kind of unnatural for people that have that other type of mind. But I would push people to explore into taking those types of classes. And then if you're like me, kind of a non-traditional approach into data science, I think a really good statistics background is very important. Kim has that through her education. She's got a really good foundation. I don't, coming from physical sciences and engineering, I don't really have that same background. So I have to really work hard and continuously re-educate myself on statistics because it's not as innate to me. So I think having a really solid background in stats just makes your life a lot easier for the work that we do.
Okay. Now, I did see a question about analytical or statistical tools. I know CNA works with an array of them, right? Depending on the project. What are some tools that you would advise people to learn about or have a basic skill set in? I'm going to go to you, Kim.
I mean, like programming languages, I generally use R, but I know like our team is kind of mixed between R and Python. Those are, I'd say, the primary languages we use, but I'd rather use R, but I'm also on a project where I use Python too, so I kind of use both of them in a way, but I'm definitely more comfortable using R. And I know recently we're trying to figure out ways that we can use ChatGPT to our best abilities, but I don't think it's been approved quite yet since it's like from public resources, but yeah, I feel like those are some of the tools we use. I don't know what else.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously like Excel is used pretty frequently. Like the data visualization tools, so things like Tableau or Click or Power BI, we use all of those. And it's like super trendy right now, the dashboards, everybody wants a dashboard. So if you have that skill set, throw that on your resume because everybody wants it. And then things like Shiny apps, like Databricks is a really popular thing now, especially with like the DoDs moving into the cloud. So I think having more cloud computational skill sets along with like your basic programming languages like R and Python are really the most critical tools to have in your toolbox.
Okay. So you hear that, everybody. There's like a lot of tools to work with. But those are some of the core ones that they mentioned. Now, I know neither one of you expected to end up in government contracting. It just kind of fell into it, right? Through just kind of learning about CNA. I know you had connections that like knew about CNA, but what really pulled you into government contracting, or what really pulled you into CNA itself? Like, why CNA?
I think for me, I've always been a very mission-oriented person. Like I kind of talked about in the beginning, I wasn't very excited to go work in a finance, like a big bank, and do analysis to help them make more money. Like I just didn't find value in that. I wouldn't be super proud of myself if that was what I was doing every day. And that's just a personal thing. You know, my parents are both uneducated. You know, they both don't have bachelor's degrees or anything. You know, they have high school diplomas. They're the hardest working people I know. My dad was a fireman. My brother's a prosecutor. I come from a community of people that are mission oriented. You know, that's the kind of people that we are. And so for me, it was really critical that I have a job and that I'm contributing to my community. I'm contributing to my, you know, country. I'm doing something that I feel like I'm adding value to somebody somewhere and I'm making their life better. And I do feel in some way, I do that every day. You know, in some regard, I'm making a ship not be in maintenance longer. So some sailors not having to sit there on the shipyard and he can actually go do his job. So I like that part about getting to work here.
I mean, definitely the impact of our work definitely is one of the reasons I came here. Another though is kind of that like analytic freedom we have in a way. I was really drawn to CNA because I was excited I'd be able to test out these new tools and practices that I like, where in like a regular corporate company, they might be like, this is all you can do, like this is all we're approved to do, and like they don't let you explore other ways. So I definitely think our analytic freedom is a huge reason why I decided to come to CNA.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. I think that's enough questions for now. I want to thank you both, Kim and Carson, for just sharing your work with us, your perspective, and so forth. We really appreciate it. What I wanted to do, give me one moment here, is to share a little bit more information. We just went through our questions. If you do have additional questions, feel free to always contact us. I wanted to go over some of the opportunities that we have in regards to some of our teams. We have research scientists, data analysts, systems engineers, associate research analysts, research assistants, which is more entry level. You can always visit us at cna.org to learn more about our organization. We also have our careers page, cna.org/careers. Our different social media pages. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube. You can also email us if you have any further questions at inquiriesjobs@cna.org. As I also mentioned, July 20th and 21st in Columbus, Ohio, is a Data Connect conference with women in analytics. And our very own Kim Bianchi will be there on July 20th from 3:30 to 4:15. She'll have a booth set up. So if you're able to attend the conference, please go see Kim, learn a little bit more about CNA, and she'll be able to answer further questions there too. We want to thank you for your time with us. And thank you. And if you have any questions, email us, or like I said, go see Kim at the Data Connect conference in Columbus, Ohio.